struggle to close it down? Well, I'm going to get into it. Start off with a question. Who here has ever said something that the moment it left your lips, you wish you could take it back? You wish you could pull it back. You're like, it's coming out, and even as it's coming out, you're like, blah, right? Or maybe you're thinking something. I've heard this before. Shh. Thank you. Or maybe this before where you're like thinking something and then you're like, did I just say that out loud? Like, right? Or, has anyone done this? Made the mistake of, oh, congratulations, on your upcoming baby. And they're like, we're not pregnant. And you're like, oh, anyone ever? Some people are like, yeah, like that's as it's coming out and you're, oh, how do you roll that one? Oh, I just, I don't know. So different things like that, You say some stuff and you want to pull it back in. But what if you were forced to speak every thought you had out loud? Like right now, if I could hear or see all your thoughts, I might feel really bad about myself. I don't know, right? Like, why is he wearing those colorful shoes? Or what's going on, or why did we do a Sunday segue? Like all those thoughts. What kind of church is this? You're new here, and what's going on? Why does he move around so much, right? That's everyone's common thing. I don't know. I'm trying to work on it. Why do I move around so much? I'm trying to stabilize. But maybe different thoughts like that. If I could read your thoughts, that wouldn't be great. I think there was a couple movies from my remembrance. I'm not recommending these movies. It's from what I remember from the past. But I think there was one called like What a Woman Wants with Mel Gibson. And if I remember correctly, it had to do with he was co-parenting, and he had his daughter, and he wasn't relating to his daughter. He couldn't connect with her. And so in an attempt to try to figure out how to connect with his daughter, he's like putting on makeup and nail polish and pantyhose. Am I right? I think that I vaguely remember. And I forget, either he was outside, there was a storm, and I don't know if he was outside, but something with a blow dryer potentially, and lightning struck, and he gets knocked out, and then when he wakes up, he thinks, he's kind of like, well, what just happened? Only to discover that he knows every woman's thoughts. He can read every woman's thoughts. And I think at first he thinks, this is amazing. No, at first he thinks it's horrible, because he finds out what everybody actually thinks about him. He thinks he's pretty good in all these women's thoughts, and then he uses it to, learns how to use it and benefit. But can you imagine being able to read everyone's thoughts? I don't know if that would be good. Probably not. I think some guys would like to be able to read, some husbands would like to be able to read their wives' thoughts. It's like, oh, you're supposed to know what I'm thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. Tell me. And then there was another movie similar with kind of a different idea. I think it was called Liar, Liar with Jim Carrey. Don't put up your hand. No, I don't know. Right? And he's a guy, again, separated parents. And he tells his son he's going to show up for his birthday. And he has a pattern of not showing up, so he doesn't show up for his son's birthday again, all the promises. And so his son wishes into his birthday cake that his dad can't lie. And unbeknownst to his dad, Jim Carrey, he doesn't know that. And he finds out all of a sudden, when he goes to say something which is a lie, he actually has to say the truth. And if you know how Jim Carrey's acting, he's like, he can do all that sort of stuff. But he actually had to communicate his thoughts if they were true. He couldn't say something else like, hey, how do I look today? He had to say how he thought. And so in both these movies, the thoughts sort of get exposed. The thoughts of people get exposed, or they get voiced, and we see the impact of that of people around them. It really has an impact on the people around them. And it wasn't the thoughts that caused the problem. It was when the thoughts came out or when the thoughts were voiced that it actually had power or impact. When the thought got exposed. See, thoughts don't have any power if we don't give voice to them. Thoughts don't have power if we don't give voice to them. I get that thoughts can torment us. We can have a lot of thoughts racing. I talk a lot about the soul, the mind, the will, and the emotions, and how God's helping. We talked about peace recently. It's to deal with the thought life. But really, if we're being honest, thoughts really have no power over us or anyone else until we give voice to it. It is your voice that gives power to the thoughts you have. It is my voice that gives power to the thoughts I have. If I just stood up here today and went like this, for 45 minutes, there wouldn't be a lot of power or impact or effect, right? And people would just start leaving and going, what kind of place is this? Oh, we're just having a thought service. What did you get today, right? It sounds like something would actually occur in culture today. It's probably a church somewhere, a thought church. Google it, somebody. No, I'm just kidding. So it's your voice that gives power to the thoughts you have. Matthew in the Gospels says it this way: therefore take no thought, saying. He talks about this idea of what you do when you take thoughts or thoughts you have. You take them when you say, what shall you eat, what shall you drink, where will you be clothed? He's talking this in context of worry, anxiety, stress, wondering what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't have this, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, we got these thoughts roaming around, and we begin to take them. We begin to allow them to have power in our lives by starting to speak the thought that we have come into our minds. Thankfully, as people mature, they learn they don't have to say everything that comes into their minds. Kids do, and adults that don't grow up do. Hopefully we have none of those here, of course, right? We are all very mature adults here. We never say something without thinking, we never just say a thought that pops into our head and just say it. Never. No, never us. That's the church over there. The church that just thinks. I don't know, that's that church. Take no thought saying, what shall we eat, what shall we drink? See, thoughts are not taken until we start saying. Thoughts are not taken until we start saying. There is nothing for a thought to take root and produce until we start speaking it. Let me give you an example. If I'm thinking to myself, man, my wife looks so good today. I'm so grateful for her to be in my life. She is an amazing mom, an amazing person. It does not do anything if I'm just thinking it. My wife will say many times, I thought about it today, and I'm like, okay, great. I thought about texting you and saying I love you, and I'm like, well, that's good. And I mean, she's saying it at that point, right? But we think about it, but we don't express it. So it's not that beneficial. But if I walk up to Nicole and I say, man, you look so good today. I'm so excited to go to church with you. We get to praise and worship together. Man, it's going to be an amazing day. All of a sudden, those words now start to produce, because words are containers. They have the power to produce. It says in Scripture that death and life are in them. And you're going to eat the fruits of whatever you voice. And so once it's expressed, it brings, it uplifts, it produces. But conversely, if we're kind of at each other, if you've been with a roommate or a friend or a boss or something, you've ever been at someone before, your spouse, you're just, and I'm in my thoughts and I'm thinking, man, she's just annoying today. That would never happen because she's never annoying. But I'm just, if we were doing a scenario here, right? Gentlemen, your wives are never annoying, right? Hypothetical. If she were to annoy me, and I was thinking, man, she's so annoying to me, if I keep that in here, then that's a good thing. But if in the exchange of it, I just look at her and go, man, you're so annoying today, all of a sudden that changes a whole dynamic. And I don't know where I'm going to go with preaching. I might be jumping ahead and all over, and you might get this, but I want to say this because you can, I will say this later, but you can, as Christians, we're called to forgive. And so you work it out and you say, oh, I'm sorry, you say some things and you say sorry. You can take back the words, but you can't take back the effect of the words. The only thing you can try to do, as we'll get into it, is to say opposite or different words to try to change it so other things are producing in that situation, in that relationship. You can't just, man, this isn't in my notes, but watch. You can't say something and then it be negative and then just say sorry and not actually change anything and start to say something different, because that thing is still going on and producing, because words are designed to produce. So in order to change that, you must voice something different to change what's being produced. Okay, I got to stand to my notes. And so we can do this for others, but I think this can happen to us. Who talks to themselves? Charlene's not here. I can tell on her. She's over there, but she knows. I've said this before. When she gets into something deep, she is a self-talker. Like big time. Yeah, Shelly knows. She's probably been around her when she's working in something. She'll be going at it and talking. But I think we can do this. See, when you express something to someone else, it has the power to produce. But I think when we get thoughts enough, it's like we self-talk or we say them to ourselves. We almost give voice to them themselves. It might not be out loud, but we start saying it to it, and it's almost like it has a voice, and it starts to produce in our lives. I can't believe how dumb I am. Huh? I'm never going to amount to anything. Why would I be so stupid? Why did I say that? And analyzing, those who like to overthink, you go back and you have a context or you have a situation and you walk out of it, I've done this, and you think about what you said and you overanalyze it and you criticize yourself for that. You're voicing, it may not be out there, but you're almost voicing it to yourself over and over. It becomes like it's a voice in your mind, and it starts to produce those things. That person doesn't like me. They looked at me wrong. Our thoughts can be taken by self and talking them to ourselves. We can take our own thoughts by saying them over and over to ourselves. So it's your voice that gives power to those words. In Mark the evangelist, traveled with Paul and Silas. They had a little rift for a bit. But he wrote in Mark 11, this is one of the famous parts of faith scriptures, word of faith, Mark 11, 22 to 24. But in this section, some of you may be familiar with it, it says this: whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and doesn't doubt in their heart, they shall have whatsoever they say. I want you to notice, which you may have already discovered, it does not say, whosoever thinks to this mountain. Oh, we smile and laugh, but I think we try to think our mountains away a lot more than speak our mountains away. We wrestle with our thoughts and try to chill, and we think, and if only, and we just rotate it through in our thoughts, and we try to say, if we think to this mountain, then we can have whatsoever we think. But that's not what this says. It says, you can have whatsoever you say. See, you may think about your mountain a lot, but if you don't speak to it, it ain't moving. You may think about something a lot, but if you don't speak to it, it might not start producing. And if you study Scripture, you'll see that Scripture says you can have what you say. The problem is, we're saying what we have. Scripture talks about having what you say. The problem is we just say what we have. You don't like your job at work. You think your work is terrible, your boss is terrible, everyone's terrible, right? So you think that, and so what you say is you talk about everyone at the water cooler. Oh, this is bad, this person, you say bad things, right? And so you're saying what you have, work is terrible, and because you're saying all these bad things about people, right, it ends up being a bad environment for work. And because work is terrible, you don't like work. And because you don't like work, you say things bad about work. And because you say things bad about work, work becomes terrible. And because work is terrible, you don't like work. Huh? Because you're saying what you have instead of going, maybe I can have what I say. See, too many of us are saying what we have and wondering why we're getting what we get. I'm gonna go hard right now. This isn't in my notes. So forgive me if it hurts too much, maybe not. But if you wonder why you're in the situation you're in, you might have to go back at some point and check what you were saying and speaking. Because words produce. And so we're wondering why we're in the situation we're in and why we're getting it. See, because what would happen, though, if we got real good, how's that for English? You got real good at using our words to have what we speak instead of speaking what we have? What if we got real good at using our words to have what we speak instead of speaking what we have, to saying what we want to have, to speaking some things out instead of just repeating what we already have in our life? I, myself, contend with this a lot. This is difficult. Sometimes I'll do better. Sometimes it's not. God will bring it back to my remembrance and say, hey, remember? You're supposed to be watching what you speak, speaking into what you have, what you want to have, not what you're going through. What would happen in a relationship if you started speaking what you wanted to have instead of what you were going through right now? This has nothing to do with that, but I just thought of relationships and I saw Dennis and Verona, and this quote was amazing. The grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you're watering it. That thing preaches. I've never heard that last point. You always hear the grass is greener, but I've never heard, no, the grass is greener where you're watering it. And the way you water your relationship is you start speaking things into it. What would happen to your perspective if you started speaking, having what you spoke instead of speaking what you have? What would happen to your hope? What would happen to your finances? To your kids, the relationship with your kids, how they behave. We get into a cycle of, oh, my kids just, and oh, why do you always so bad, kids? And why do you never listen? And why, and then you know how we'll get into it kind of, you're getting into that cycle because you start using the words never and always. You never listen. You never put your toys away. You never do this, what, and then you go, why don't they put their toys away? Because you're saying they don't put their toys away. I know this sounds crazy, but what if you came up and said, man, I really believe in you. I know this. I think today's going to be a day that we're going to work together, and I know you're going to be able to clean up your room. We're going to have an amazing, what if you just started changing the dialogue? Because we just get this cycle of you kind of get it, then you speak it, then you get it, then you speak it, you're like, what's going on? What would happen if we did this? And so it comes back to this question. I really struggled with the title, so if this title doesn't work, I was like, fits, doesn't fit. But it's a question we're calling this message, what were you thinking? Look at somebody else beside him and say, what were you thinking? I thought it was funny. I hope I can kind of tie it in. I don't use it a lot. If you're watching today online, why don't you type to me, put in the chat, Pastor Derek, what were you thinking? Yeah, let me know. I don't know what I was thinking with that title, but hopefully it works. But here's the connection. And we've kind of alluded to it, and we're going to dig into this, and then I'm going to do a fun thing at the end. Not cheeseburgers, but something fun. It might be time for something like cheeseburgers again, hey? Yeah. Just making a message backwards, just trying to get cheeseburgers into it, right? That's always great. Amen. There was true revival when we did that service. Thank you, Bernice. I don't know what I was thinking. Chrissy, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm getting texts. Everybody's wanting to ask me what I was thinking. My phone's blowing up. Thank you, everybody. See, but in order to change what you're speaking, we probably have to address what we're thinking. See, we don't have to speak what we're thinking. We talked about that. But we know even if we try to not speak what we're thinking, if you think on it long enough, eventually it comes out. It's going to come out of you at some point. Matthew, a disciple of Jesus, said this. Actually, Solomon first talks about this over 3,000 years ago when he kind of said this statement. He said this statement, as a person thinks in their heart, so are they. And Matthew comes back to it, and I'm going to read a few verses here. And he's talking about these lines as well, and he says this in Matthew 12:33-37. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers. Anyone been called a brood of vipers before, you snakes? How can you, he's talking to the Pharisees, the religious people. And he's getting upset because they're going around and talking, using their voices to diss the disciples, diss Jesus, go against him, say it's not real. And he's saying, listen, you can't even have good come out of you. You guys are vipers. You're evil. Like you just, he wasn't a big fan of the Pharisees and Sadducees and religious people of the day. They weren't a fan of his either, though. So he says, as brood of vipers, how can you be evil, speak good things? Watch this. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things. An evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give an account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you'll be justified, and by your words you'll be condemned. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What is in you eventually comes out of you. If somebody is around you enough, eventually you'll start to know what they're all about by how they talk, right? How they post. Maybe even quicker by what people post. But that word heart there, we take it, we ask Jesus into your heart. It's kind of got these spiritual connotations, but it actually is the Greek word cardia, K-A-R-D-I-A. And it does denote the center of all spiritual life, but it also means the center of all physical life. Watch these definitions. The soul or mind, this word cardia means the soul or mind, as it is the fountain and seat of, watch, thoughts, passions, desires, appetites, affections, purposes, and endeavors. It's of the understanding, the faculty, the seat of intelligence, watch this, of the will and character. I think that word more accurately translated in this instance would be out of the abundance of the soul, the mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of your thoughts, out of the abundance of your desires, out of the abundance of your passions, out of the abundance of your appetites, out of what you are putting in you, what you are taking in, what you have an appetite for, what you have in desire, eventually what you put in abundance comes out of you, out of your mouth. See, out of the abundance of the soul, the mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of what we're feeling, our mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of your purpose, your mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of what you're passionate about, your mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of your character, your mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of your thoughts, your mouth speaks. A good person with good things in abundance in them speaks good things. An evil person, if you're struggling with good things coming out of your mouth, you want to check what you're putting in you in abundance. I'll leave it. If you aren't speaking good things, you need to check what is abundant in you. What am I allowing into my soul the most? Because what I let in the most impacts my thoughts the most, and what impacts my thoughts the most eventually is what I start to say the most. Now you may go, oh, Pastor Derek, I'm not evil. I don't speak evil things, like I don't curse people. I'm not into witchcraft. I'm not into Ouija boards. I don't do horoscopes. I don't swear. I don't this. I don't do evil stuff. I get a pass, right? Whew. I get a pass. Pat's already been in these verses. We talk a lot about this, and she even talks about James. James does this same kind of stuff, right? Pat's like, nope. Because look what Matthew says here in verse 36. I say to you, that for every, do you got that, Xavier? Verse 36, because I just want to read this with him, Matthew 12:36. I think I put it in again. I say to you that for every evil word men may speak, they will give an account of it in the day of judgment. Is that what it says? But I say to you, for every evil word that men may speak, is that what it says? No, it doesn't say every evil word that you give an account. Every what? Wait a minute. I was good with the evil word. I think I'm good. But idle words? That's a whole lot more intense. Because we're kind of like good as church people. We're not evil. We don't do this stuff. But he doesn't say that. He says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, and for every idle word. Oh boy, do you know what idle means? I-D-L-E, right? Lazy, shunning the labor which one ought to perform. Watch, barren, useless, or slow. Dumb. Useless, barren, these words that don't need to be said because they're not going to produce what you want them to produce. That's a whole different ballgame. I put this, idle words, words used that are not useful in producing good fruit. Any word that is not useful in producing good fruit in your life or someone else's life, hello. Can I help somebody here? I'm jumping ahead, so hopefully I can get back. Words are designed to produce, watch. So even when no one or very few people are around to hear them, they still will produce. So you just think it's you and this person talking about it. It's not. Because the enemy doesn't know your thoughts, but the moment you start speaking something, he hears it and then can start acting on it. But I think words are containers. The scriptures, they're death and life in the words. And so just because the person isn't there, come on. I got to get better. I said to Kim, wherever I was talking to her, I was like, this message, because I knew. I was like, because you could just be, we're just talking about this. But just because the person isn't there doesn't mean that word can't then go and produce in their life. And we think out of all other guys is even good intentions. We're helping, we're doing this, we're talking about it. It's not evil, but it's idle. And then we wonder why this situation keeps happening in our life with that person or in that situation, or that maybe it's because we are having idle words and those are starting to produce, even if that person isn't around to hear it. Because there's an enemy that's taken it and goes, they think let's work on this, let's get in there, or just in general words produce. It says this, every idle word men may speak, they'll give account of it in the day of judgment. I just want to quickly say that. People think of it as the end times, the judgment, standing before God. That could be true, but that word judgment means crisis. The word means crisis. And so he says to you, every idle word you may speak, you're going to give account to it in the day of crisis. This is basically what Matthew's saying. When the pressure is on, what comes out of you is what's in you in abundance. What's an example? You get in a car accident. If the first words out of you are beep, 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 that's what's in you in abundance. It's when you're not thinking. It's when you're reacting. It's when you get in a fight or something happens with a kid, your kids or something like that, and you say whatever you say. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Whatever you say. I hate to say it, but that's actually what's in you in abundance when you're not putting the checks in, which just naturally comes out of you. That's what he's saying in the day of crisis. If you got idle thoughts and things inside of you, it's going to squeeze its way out. So you don't know really about a person, not when everything's comfortable. You find out about it when it's crisis. What comes out of you when you're faced with crisis? What's in you in abundance? When something happens, is it, I can't believe again how stupid I am or how stupid that person is? I don't know why I can't get anything right. Here's the I never, I always. See, a sign of idle words in your life in abundance or idle thoughts is never and always. Because nobody nevers and nobody always is. Like to say somebody always, come on. But isn't it interesting, though, that never and always seem to be used in a negative or evil context and not positive? Because they're just the way, it's never done as a positive thing. What if it was, I'm always a child of God? What if it was, I never get too far that God won't find me? What if it was, I never have to go back to my sin-filled ways? Come on. What if it was, I always know God's grace is enough? Right away, it just changed. Like, why is never and always like something that? Why aren't we negative? Why aren't we turning it around to victorious and positive? See, because we have a lot of idle words. Instead, we need to be having ideal words. We get stuck in idle, but instead, hey, why don't we get some ideal words in our vocabulary? And you think, who cares? It's not a big deal. But Jesus says, by your words you'll be justified. By your words you're going to be condemned. And so we speak from what is in abundance in our hearts. What were you thinking? That's where it's coming from. So like when somebody says something, you're like, what were you thinking? Why did you say that, right? What were you thinking? But I want to also say this. There's no such thing as idle or throwaway words. If we could get this right, if I could, oh my goodness. There's no such thing as just idle or it's just no. That's the words, not evil. Idle words is what we get judged by. See, I've said this and I'm coming back to it. Words produce even when there's no one else around to hear it. And so stop speaking idle words from useless thoughts and start speaking ideal words from useful thoughts. Stop speaking idle words from useless thoughts, church, Christian. husband, wife, parent, child, teenager. Stop speaking idle words from useless thoughts. We do it all the time without even thinking about it. That's why it's idle. I do it all the time. But God was like, share on this. And then God was like, work on this together. And start speaking ideal words from useful thoughts. I'm the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. That's a useful speaking from a useful thought, an ideal speaking. If God is for me, who can be against me? He was bruised and wounded, so I don't have to live life bruised and wounded from the trauma of the past and the things I've gone through. Jesus was, so I can be. Come on. Useful thoughts, ideal words. He was chastised. He took the chastisement of our peace, so I can walk in peace and I can work in peace. That I don't have to go around stressed and anxiety and depressed and worry, but there's peace. I can walk in that. He was chastised, so I was. I could have peace. I am made complete in Christ. I am an overcomer. The circumstances of life are not going to take me out. Ideal words, useful thoughts. But Pastor Derek, what if I'm not there yet? I get that in order to change what we speak, we have to change what we're taking in abundance, right? I talked about that. So some of these lines that I have, you should just get them, go listen to this thing, write them down, and when you're struggling and you're going out, just start saying this. But let me give you a quick insta-stop to your negative thoughts. Who could use an insta-stop to negative thoughts when they come in? Let me show you something. I hadn't seen this before. Hopefully this works. I tried it in practice with myself and it worked. So if it doesn't work, it's your fault. No. Because you weren't there, it worked when I was there. But we have to do this together. Let me show you something and then I'm done. Someone look at somebody and say, what were you thinking? Who's telling me? City Center said, what were you thinking? Hugh said, what were you thinking? Keanu said, let us have true revival with lettuce. Oh my goodness, people are getting humorous on here. Humorous. They're getting femur. No, okay, that's... Thank you, Pastor Jim. Nobody else got that except people have real bad dad joke taste. Okay, let me give you the sample. Here's what I need you to do. So I need everyone to pay attention. You can do this online if you're watching. You can do this with me 20 seconds later than we're doing it here. But let me give you the instructions, so listen up, and then we have to do this. You have to do this right for it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ready, set, go. And when I do that, I'm going to get everyone together to count to 50 quietly in their mind together. Okay, quietly, right? So in your thoughts. So I'm going to say ready, set, go, and we're going to start counting. And then at some point in counting quietly together, I'm going to yell stop really loud. And the moment I yell stop, everyone has to yell out what number they stopped at. Okay? Does everyone get that? So it's going to be ready, set, go, quietly together. We're going to count. And then at some point I'm going to yell stop. And after I yell stop, you're going to yell out what number you were at when I yelled stop. Okay, here we go. Ready, set, go. Stop! 27. Okay, don't forget that number you stopped at. Okay, we're going to come back to that. But watch. Don't forget that number. But when I asked you to count in our minds together, I said, let's do this together. What happened when we all did it in our own thoughts? Different numbers. But what happened the moment I yelled stop? You all yelled out the number. And without you realizing it, the moment you started yelling out that number, you stopped counting. Right? You stopped counting. Right now, as I'm talking, guess what I'm not doing? Thinking about what I'm having for lunch. You may be thinking about what you're having for lunch. But because I'm talking, I'm not thinking about what I'm having for lunch. I am now in between. But I tried it to try to think about something else while I was saying like this message, and I can kind of get there for a bit, but before long it would be like you guys would just, because right now I'm thinking I'm going to go home. Oh wait, see, I'm going to say it, right? I'm going to say about my preaching, but really right now if I start thinking we have leftover pizza, but I'm trying to, eventually it would take over and I would be making no sense. So there's a couple things that happen that you would have noticed is when we're left to our own thoughts, when we're left alone and isolated, we come to some very different conclusions on where we're at. Because our thoughts that's what the devil wants you to get in your thoughts, get isolated in your thoughts, make you feel alone, and so that you're thinking and going through it, that when you come to conclusions, they're not accurate. Because you're quietly going over them. But watch, here's the insta-stop. You can be going with your thoughts, and for too much, we try to just think different things. If you're struggling with thoughts and what you're thinking, you don't need to try to think different things. You need to try speaking, because when you speak, your thoughts stop. Someone's going to get this today. So instead of trying to change what you're thinking, you need to start changing what you're speaking, because the moment, watch, when negative thoughts are coming in, when it's bombarding you, if you decide to start speaking victorious, speaking useful, speaking ideal things out of your mouth, you don't realize it, but the moment you start speaking, those thoughts stopped for that moment. And so if you say, hey, I got a bunch of things and for 5 minutes I'm going to speak it, for that time alone, those thoughts stop. It's just the way it has to work. See, we're quietly trying to sit there and pray. No. There's time. Your circumstances need to hear your voice. Your thoughts need to know what's in charge. And so this is an instant stop no matter where you are. You can write 10 things down. And when you feel those thoughts coming in, you write those things and you look at them, you start speaking them. Because at least for that 10, 20, 30 seconds, those thoughts stop. And it's the beginning place of now starting to get stuff in you in abundance that will change the way you speak. One more thing. This is good. Your finances need to hear your voice. Your circumstances, this isn't the thing, but your relationships need to hear your voice. The devil needs to hear your voice. The devil, the enemy, needs to hear your voice. Your spouse needs to hear you worshiping and praising. Your children need to hear your voice saying the positive things. Watch. Okay, so remember, I asked you to remember where you stopped, right? Jake, where did you stop? 17. Alana, where'd you stop? 34. Matt, where'd you stop? 37. I stopped at 27. Murray, where'd you stop? Bridget, 10. Right, all over the place. But now what I want you to do, watch. Where'd you stop? There you go. Because I didn't, listen. Oh, this is good. You may have done it like a clock every second. I didn't tell you how fast to count. But notice I said, let's do it together. But why didn't it end up together? Because we're in our thoughts. But watch, let's do this. Together now, we're going to count up to 50. And we're going to do the exact same thing. Ready, set, go. Except instead of your thoughts, we're going to do it out loud with our voices. Together. And when I yell stop, I know this seems kind of funny, but when I yell stop, you're going to yell out where you stopped, okay? Together. Not in our thoughts, together out loud. So we say, ready, set, go, and together we're going to do this. Ready? Okay. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Stop! 23! Well, if somebody ended on 29, that's another message about following. Wait, did you see what just happened there? Not only did we count, I changed the pace at which we counted. And you guys just followed. If I would have done that in my thoughts, there wasn't a chance anyone's going to be on the same page. But when we voice together under following someone's instruction and guide. When we follow Jesus' guide together of what the scripture says, and we speak what he's saying, 1, 2, and we follow that, we end up on, what was it, 27? No, 23 together. And then our thoughts, which are leading us astray, watch. If you're struggling with your thoughts, you need to get around some other people that are marching together towards Jesus. Because then you get the same pace. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you end up in the same spot, and you start thinking and seeing the right way instead of where your thoughts took you before, where we were all over the place. Can I help somebody today? This is why praise and worship is so important. See, you come 5, 6, 7 minutes late and think it's no big deal. It is a big deal, because it is the point in the time of service where we come together. And if you come in with all your thoughts and all your burdens and all the circumstances and everything coming in, for those 30 minutes, if you are lifting up your voice, those thoughts stop. And together we start going in unity, and things start happening, and you don't realize it, but something is changing on the inside of you when you lift your voice. So it's not good enough if you just come to church and sit quietly, because your thoughts don't change. Your thoughts don't have power. Your words do. And there's multiplied power when we come together. And we start singing and praising. And for that moment, if you lift your voice, your thoughts don't have reign. Yeah. Music team, come on up. Woo! So you can't just come in quietly and reflect. You can, it just won't change as much. But I encourage you, if you struggle with your thoughts, start singing together what's up there. Come to praise and worship. Come to prayer. Because in those moments when you're praying and you're speaking it forth, the thoughts stop, and you don't realize it, but you're starting to change what you're speaking, so different things start to get produced in your life. That's what prayer is. That's what singing is. It's speaking forth the things. It's easy to get off track in your thoughts when you're by yourself. We can all come to different conclusions and numbers, but when we come together, it's like clarity happens, and you go, oh, 23, that's it. Because there's many others counting with you, and we're following Jesus who's conducting us. And we get to the right number at the right time, and we see it right. When you speak, your thoughts stop. So, if you've struggled with thoughts, we sang that song, we're coming back to it, It's a New Horizon, because that song is chock full of useful thought and ideal words. And we need to sing it over ourselves and over City Center Church, because I believe some things are shifting today. Where idle words were about grave and death, and I don't know if I can make it, or this is the end, or nothing's going right, or we don't have enough. It's starting to shift today. Hello, peace. Hello, joy. Hello, blessing. Hello, wisdom. Hello, strength. Hello, all the fruits of the Spirit. It's a new horizon. Because in March Step, we can sing it together. And as we do it, I believe some of those that have an abundance of things that aren't right in their souls, that's going to start getting transferred. And like I said, I saw God picking out hopelessness and putting in hope, picking out turmoil and giving peace, kind of changing it. But we must be willing to sing it, to use our voices, and then watch the words produce. Come on, stand with us.